Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Josh.
It's so good to see you.
You too.
There are microphones between us.
Yeah.
We have our incredible Bobby Dart, who's recording us by video and by microphone. And we're kind of going to do a bonus podcast thing for folks who listen to the Mile High podcast and just kind of talk and connect. I think we are always longing for a greater personal connection with people who are listening to us, and this might be a way for them to get to know us better, and it's a good opportunity to connect with you.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to connect, and I think it's a great opportunity to really be more conversational than we get to be on Sundays or even in classes sometimes. So
yes,
it's
good. And so much going on in our personal lives, so
Yes.
much going on in the world. It's a loaded question, but how are you? How are you doing?
I'm in a very busy time right now. I was just thinking about our initiative for the year about personal health and wellness and that sort of thing. And I had a boundary set for myself that I wanted to only teach one class at a time. And I somehow fell into teaching 3 classes right now. And I've noticed that that's populated my schedule in a bit of a way that I feel very full. I'm spending 10, 12 hours a day here at the church because of all that we do during the week. I find it funny when people say, what is it that you do during the week? Because they think we just speak on Sundays, right?
Right.
But we have meetings and all sorts of stuff. So I'm enjoying the teaching, but I can feel it's taking a little toll on my energy.
Yeah. It's a very busy time, and I know I'm in trouble sometimes where I'm telling a story in class and I go, oh shoot, did I tell you this story last week, or was this to the other class? And then I know I'm a little frazzled, as good as the story may be.
Yeah, and you have a young one at home, so you probably get awakened at night. With a baby wanting attention, a toddler wanting you to soothe them back to sleep.
We also have a teenager who consciously falls down the stairs to go cook a burrito or whatever he's doing. And it's a busy time. And for me too, there is a sense of lack of coherence sometimes with daily life that busyness can do. And the thing that came up for me a couple weeks ago, doing some journaling, which I never do. I write sermons. That's kind of my journaling. But I know you have a regular journaling practice. But the statement was that your way of life should not be a result of your work, but your work should be a result of your way of life. And I know I'm lacking that congruence when, especially my ministry, but I think the administration and the management, all of that too, isn't grounded in a way of life that's founded in gratitude, that's focused on self-care, that's committed to spirit and seeing the divine in all aspects of my life. When it's more attuned with the to-do list or with the worries and concerns, that's when, it's not that I don't do a good job anymore, but that's when things get fragmented and it's not as much fun.
Right. Yeah, I saw a meme today, something about building a life that you love to live, not when you have to escape from.
Yes.
To feel whole and to feel at peace. And it really hit me. I spent my practice this morning trying really hard to just breathe and just be in the life that I'm in now and feel the energy of the divine energizing me into the day, because I think we just kind of go woo a lot. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of pressure being a spiritual leader in chaotic times. I want to get to that in a moment. But to your line, that was my big breakthrough last year, was around self-care. And it's like, I don't want to have to escape my life for self-care. I want my life to be an example of my self-care, to have it in there every day. And if you're going to do this ministry or spiritual leader business, I think if that isn't first, it bothers you, or you show up, or I'm worried I'm being full of shit, not walking the talk and how I'm showing up for folks. And, I know you, so I know you're always, walking your talk and always that sincerity. But, anything about, what might be the pressures of being a spiritual leader in these times?
Well, of course, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the world to keep the average human being awake at night, wondering what it's all about. I was talking to a board member yesterday, and we were talking about, if you haven't wondered in the last few months if there really is a God, maybe there's something wrong with you, because there's this contemplation about what's happening to our world, this unsettledness that impacts us too. And it impacts us not only as human beings participating in it, but I think also as spiritual leaders saying, how do I help people through these challenging times in a way that is spiritually grounded and yet doesn't feel like spiritual bypass to people? Because people are confused and angry. And as empaths, we feel all that and we want to respond to it and we want to help people through it. But it's just an added pressure, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, it's just that anxiety, that unsettledness. And
Right.
I think sometimes, we're all, everyone in the spiritual world all about getting people back to church while recognizing a lot of people are connected in different ways.
Yes.
But I do think, for a lot of people during the pandemic and through so much transition in the country and in the world, there's not only a sense of a lack of spiritual connection, but a lack of wanting to pursue spirituality because they feel knocked off their course or they feel that there's something inherently wrong or, it challenges one's faith
Right.
in spirit. And so I think that some people are slow to re-engage where they maybe had a much more engaged spirituality or church attendance or spiritual community, whatever it looks like for them before, to get back because there is that anxiety and resistance because things have been so difficult or isolating or anxiety inspiring.
Yes, and I would totally agree with you. And I think people, when we get confused or angry or frustrated, we can find the lofty ideals of any spiritual teaching. That dissonance feels like it's not a match, that I want to be where I am and be confused or angry or just frustrated. And I don't want to think about God. I don't want to think about the spiritual truth of this issue. I just want to be pissed. That, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's something about connecting in spiritual community that can help us find that balance also.
Yeah. And, you're writing off of that, this past Friday, big decision from the Supreme Court,
Right.
Overturning Roe versus Wade, which is another way of saying that is for a long time in our country, we had a precedent that a woman had right to make choices about her health care, and the Supreme Court turned it back and said, let's make this a state issue. And I would say both as a spiritual leader and as a woman, and so many people admire you and listening, I'm just wondering the impact that had on you and how you respond as a spiritual leader with everything that you just said to something that no matter what people's position is has certainly shaken to the core so many women in our country who believe in their own personal right to make their own healthcare decisions.
Well, I've thought a lot about it, and I think I've been where I was talking about people being. I've been in that human place of shock and surprise at that. I also think as a person, I tend to be very able to see a lot of viewpoints, and I can totally understand why for some people in our world this feels like a better decision, that women, they're against abortion, that sort of thing. And for other people, it feels like the absolute wrong decision because of our ability and our belief in our country that we should have a right to choose. So I can see all sides of it, and I tend to lean into choice personally more as a human being. I think that one of the greatest things about being a human and about being in America and about life in general is that we all get to choose the life we want to live, and we make choices and we have consequences. So I do personally tend to lean into the right to choose. It tends to be the place for me, and I understand and I can see all sides of it. I think what I also lean into is believing that we humans and we women will find a way around this that we can't even see just yet. Roe versus Wade was the law of the land for a long time. And so maybe it's not, and maybe there's something even better that will restore our ability to feel those choices coming about. I don't know what it is. That's the kind of thing that is hard to see. But at the same time, I understand why women are mad and why people are mad and want to scream and yell about it and want to be angry about it and want to say this isn't fair. Totally get that. Totally get that. And I find it, I have thought a lot about something I haven't said out loud much, but a lot of people want the church to get up and say this is wrong, and I don't resonate with that. I can say I have a personal belief. I have personal beliefs about a lot of things, but I don't think that should be the way any church should speak out, because many of us have left other churches because they tried to dictate morality to us. Mm-hmm. So we have to watch that tendency to say, well, Mile High Church or Science of Mind should stand up and tell people how they should be morally or politically. And I don't resonate with that. Mm-hmm. I think you have a great gift. One of the things I love best about you, Josh, is you have a beautiful gift of really anchoring these concepts of spirituality into the issues of the day that trouble people and challenge people. And so I love listening to you speak when you take those on, because it's just really refreshing and profound for me. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for that. And I agree with your position, and we always say that in our teaching, that we're here to help people know how to think, not tell them what to think. And when it's an issue like this decision, I always use the term collective wound. Mm-hmm. There are things that have to do with the history of our country, about how we treated Native people, right, about racism, mm-hmm, and about the how in misogynistic culture, mm-hmm, we as a country, men in particular, have mistreated women throughout the years. And so when something like this happens, it touches upon the collective wound of the almost primordial memory, mm-hmm, of the mistreatment of, mm-hmm, women in our country and throughout the world. And so it's infuriating. And there's something spiritual there, in the sense where if you're not speaking up or not acknowledging that hurt, you're I agree, kind of part of the problem. And me, mm-hmm, as a white dude, or I'm called to listen. I'm not, mm-hmm, here to fix the wound. I'm not here to put a Band-Aid on it, but I'm here to be an empowering presence for women, no matter what. And mm-hmm, the story I kept thinking of this weekend, and I've gotten to share it on a Sunday before, is about Howard Thurman, a black theologian, and he's walking through a park with his two little girls in segregated Florida, and they see a swing set, and they say, "Daddy, can we go swing on those swings?" And he has to say no. And it's the first time that he knows he's going to have to sit down his daughters and tell them that because of the color of their skin, they're a second-class citizen in their country, right, and because they're women in some ways too. Mm-hmm. That could be a different, mm-hmm, discussion. So he sits down and he just, he explains it to him, but he puts a different spin. And he says, "You are two very powerful girls, so powerful that it takes the city council, the sheriff, in this instance, the whole Supreme Court, right, to try and stop you from being the powerful, incredible young ladies. Your presence threatens the whole state of Florida," mm-hmm, he tells them. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would say to women at some, mm-hmm, level. Supreme Court, very powerful, right, incredible institution, right, Congress, all three branches of government, all of that. None have as much power as the collective female voice in our country, and it's important to respond to that. Mm-hmm. That being said, I do tend to respect our institutions. I don't always respect the people in the institutions, right, but I think that that there are always arguments to be made, and I honor those who consider themselves pro-life. Mm-hmm. I acknowledge them. I congratulate those who are thrilled with this, and mm-hmm, I highly believe in the rights of Americans to make decisions for their bodies and to connect to connect that. And there is something to be said. And I think a lot of people are saying, what's your position? Are you pro-life, pro-choice? I think a lot of people right now have to say what how do we best limit abortions that don't need to be limited in our society, and encourage people who want to live healthy lives or to have their kids to know that they can have them. And so what's the position? Is it 18 weeks? Is it 15 weeks? Mm-hmm. Of course, beyond that, the instances of rape and all those sorts of things, but how are we educating and empowering women all across the world to know how powerful they are, and to then make the best decisions in a society, hopefully, that supports them, a healthcare system system, educating males too on all these sorts of things. And so I'm sorry to go on, but it's such a complicated issue. And what I want for people, or what I want people who consider themselves as spiritual people, just like you said, is to know that as much of a gut punch something is, and again, I feel silly saying, because I'm a guy, I'm not directly affected by this, but to know that spiritual resilience, that this is an opportunity not to give up, but to remember the truth of who you are and the truth of people around you, and to stand by that. Use your vote, use your criticism, and maybe see if we can get through this without damning the other side.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that is the last thing you said. So important to respond powerfully with love and compassion, and know that we can move forward and become a better world, the enlightened citizenry that Dr. Roger used to talk about, if you will, that can find solutions and ways that can, as our teaching teaches us, be a solution for everybody, a world that works for everyone. What does that look like around this issue, right? So I like I said, I don't know that I know it, but I know it's there. Yeah. I can feel it. It's there. And I feel that with a lot of the issues in the world. Like we get caught up in the problems and we don't bring our great dreams of possibilities. We get caught up in the problem. And there will be some time where we're going to be caught up in this problem just because of that wound you talk about and that sense of another moment of oppression and that sort of thing. But there will come a moment when we will triumph and we will come forth with solutions that can work for everyone.
Yeah, and we did. It was an interesting thing. I know a lot of people didn't think it went far enough, but to me, it was interesting that on the same day that this court ruling came out, that all of us were expecting in some way, but still shocked by it. And I think it speaks to that collective wound, why that shock is there. But there was a Senate bill passed that put some limitations on firearms and who can have one and when they can have one. That was bipartisan, and I think. No matter how many people get mad at the left or the right, when people are working together, or those who consider themselves more in the center, when they do come together, or the next time Justice Gorsuch seems to make a decision that you agree with, honor it or recognize it, or Kagan or whoever it is, whatever your political spectrum, there are those ideas where we can work together, and there's nothing wrong again with having an opposition and having someone that you disagree with. But if you cut off all room to work together, then you're really doing ourselves a disservice as Americans, as hard as
I know
it is.
It really can be.
I can't tell anyone who might be listening to this to not be furious or angry.
No.
And I get it.
Not.
And, I think I read Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day as renouncing his American citizenship.
Oh, gosh.
God bless him. But there's that aspect to me that when we give America to the other side and say they've won, we've really disempowered ourselves, and everyone's voice is important at the table. And when people remove their voices, it feeds the polar opposites on the other side. And so I would encourage folks, and getting ready for this Sunday, it's not easy giving a patriotic sermon on Sunday for our Independence Day, but it's a quote I almost use from John McCain, which he says, criticize your government, but make it better. Right.
Exactly.
It's so important to do that and participate in the process. And when we shut ourselves out of it, we forget our own citizenship and our own power. So as hard as it is, and I know it's hard, get in there.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're speaking this Sunday and not me.
I'm looking forward to it. It's a great.
I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Really, truly. I mean, I always love how you do these services.
And we don't. I think America is something sacred.
I do too.
It's something we all hold to, and so it is an important part of spirituality. And I think that that we can be we can talk about America without being ultra partisan,
right?
And we can speak sometimes to social issues, and to do it from a consciousness of wholeness, not a consciousness of blame, of pointing fingers. And I think that because of our openness and our welcoming to people who have different positions, it allows us to do that. And so I hope we create a sanctuary Sunday. And I was just about to ask you what you're looking forward to at Mile High coming up in July, and I am still, despite outward conditions, really looking forward to this Sunday. And we've got a picnic and great music after
Yes.
service. Jennifer Burnett and Mark Marlier and their Neil Diamond tribute band are going to play. We'll see how that goes in the summer heat.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for Solitary Man a couple times. I love that song. But
Man.
what are you looking forward to at Mile High in July?
I always love that picnic. That picnic is just a blast. It just feels like it's the community coming together, and we get to just really see each other in fun, joyful, dancing and laughing and enjoying. So I look forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to a speaker we're having here in July. Of course, we have Matt Kahn coming back for his postponed event that was supposed to be in June.
The return
of Matt Kahn. But the end of July, on the 24th, we have Nick Lawrence coming to speak about having a holistic brain and I think dealing with some of the issues that people may be experiencing, not only from the pandemic, but from decisions that are being made right now through the government that they don't agree with, or the war in Ukraine, or whatever issues are creating anxiety. Nick is going to teach us how to have a more holistic brain and how to deal with and manage anxiety and our frustrations in a way that really works for our brain. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I think it's great. I think one of the things, and we've talked about this as spiritual leaders and as churches, is how do we stay relevant and to people's lives. And I love several of the things that you're leading this month, including bringing Nick in, and I know you're doing a 2-part series in honor of our health and well-being initiative. And so that's what's up for people: lack of spiritual connection, anxiety, trauma, these sorts of things. And so I love that in your messages and in the people you're bringing to share with us is that you're talking about things that are really real and relevant for people. And so I hope people get involved and participate in that.
Thank you.
And so, Michelle, we may do this again.
Yes.
But it was great to connect. I appreciate you and honor you. And please take good care of yourself so that you can keep taking good care of the rest of us.
Thanks. You too, Josh.